Hello and good afternoon. Good afternoon, depending on where you're joining us from. Welcome to this session. I mean, it promises to be a very educating session. We're discussing the pathway to becoming a strategic communications expert. And of course, my name is Utibe, or you would have seen. And we have the very amiable and renowned veteran, communications veteran. I like to call her that, Mrs. Sola Abulu of Sola Abulu and Associates. I think that we'd just like to I'd like to give us a minute to see that you share this link to all the communications experts in your network. Let them see this. This is going to be a very educating session, and of course, you can have your questions are entertained. Your questions are welcome. So as you listen, as you plan to listen, and take notes as much as possible. Be excited about these as I am excited, and we'll be discussing the pathway to becoming a strategic communications expert. I hope that by the end of this session you would be on the way to becoming a strategic communications expert. So I'll just introduce, the guest and the host of this session, because I mean, like I said earlier, I said she's Mrs. Sola Abulu of Sola Abulu and Associates. So she's a business leader and trusted advisor with over 25 years experience in organizational effectiveness, strategic communications and reputation, and crisis management in companies and organizations within Nigeria, the UK, Netherlands. I mean, she's currently a communications consultant and the principal consultant of Sola Abulu and Associates. So yes, this is who we have. Now I'm sure that you're very certain of what we're going to be having and discussing this afternoon. All right, like I said earlier, my name is Utibe Eno and I'll be your moderator for this session. Okay, so the topic is we're just going to go right into the conversation. The topic is the pathway to becoming a strategic communications expert. And it's very easy to just assume that everybody in this session knows what strategic communications is. But you may just be about to swipe past this video on your timeline, on your LinkedIn feed. But give us one more minute. Give Mr. Shola Abulu a minute to tell you what it means to be a strategic communications expert. What does strategic communications mean? And then with this definition, you would know how relevant this conversation is for you. All right. So thank you, Mara. It's about what. So the first question is, what does strategic communications mean?
Thank you, Tibeno. Strategic communications is a very simple definition. And first of all, hello everybody. Thanks for joining. Hope you're well. And Tibeno, thanks for joining me here today. We're going to have a really good conversation. We'll end it up 1 hour max, 3:30. We'll be out of here. So, and just listen very carefully. Keep your questions. Type them in the comments. Let us hear you. If you're not hearing us well, give us some indication, to let us know that, okay, you're not hearing us well, or you have a question, or I say something that doesn't make sense to you. Please, let's make this as interactive as possible. So yes, strategic communications is very simple. It's called the purposeful use of communications to achieve your objectives and to achieve your objectives or fulfill your mission. Now, it's a simple definition, but it's not as simple as it sounds, because most of us, we assume that communications happen simply because we said or we did something. But what strategic communications does, and this is adopted by businesses, organizations, brands, they do it in such a way to make sure that whatever it is that they intended to communicate, the meaning that they intended to convey, is appropriately conveyed without any misinterpretation, and that the action that they required from whoever is receiving that information, they actually get that action. And that may require, you can imagine how many people you may need to influence. If it's on a national level, it's on a consumer level, on a market level. So strategic communications is about being purposeful about how you communicate with your audience, however big or small it is. Simple definition. Thank you.
Wow, that was quite apt. And I'm sure now you're convinced that you need this conversation. So the next question is, what does it take to become a strategic communications expert? what do I need, to become a strategic communications expert. So just in case I'm in that on the lines towards becoming a strategic communications expert, what do I need to do, or what am I not doing right? Because I mean, this question is going to answer that those questions on our minds. What am I doing right, or what am I not doing right on my way to becoming a strategic communications expert?
So first of all, let me talk a little bit about what it means to be a strategic to be able to advise a business or an organization, or to be a strategic communications expert. You have to be somebody that can advise a business or an organization or a brand in a way that enables them to achieve measurable objectives. Now, not just how would I say, intangible objectives, but you have to be able to be the kind of person that a business can come to you and say, look, I'm struggling in this area. My people are not internally, my workers are not motivated. We have a vision. People are not really understanding what we want to do. We don't really feel that we're achieving that vision, or that even our employees know what they're supposed to do. The market don't even know who we're supposed to do. And based on that context and scenario that they are building to you, you can step back, gather the information that you need from within the business, the organization, go into the market, get the external insights, and then look at what they're trying to achieve, and then craft a communication strategy for that business or that brand based on your assessment of where they are, where they need to be, and the building blocks that have to happen in between. Because at the end of the day, and I think this is the point that I really I would like to bring out. At the end of the day, everything that we do on this earth, every endeavor, everything, I kid you not, everything is by people, for people, and because of people. So if you are unable to influence, you are unable to advocate, something goes wrong in terms of how you pass on the message, you will have problems. That problem sometimes starts from even within the organization. Sometimes within the organization, there is no issue. Then it is outside. It may be with the markets, the way you manage your relationship with customers. It may be with investors. It may be with the government. It may be with the media. It may be also be with regulators. So strategic communications are people who then come in professionally into that space to help you navigate that whole experience and to be a bit more purposeful. So in other words, when I'm now going into a conversation, I am not taking it for granted that this person understands what I'm saying. Or that just because I said it, they're going to listen to me. So just being that intentional about how you manage that conversation with different stakeholders, that is how, and get the results that you need. In fact, that's the most important thing, because you can do all of that and still not get the results that you need. That's what it means to be a strategic communications expert. And I want to draw a distinction between a strategic communications practitioner and a strategic communications expert.
And
This is really talking about
expert.
that journey to expertise, to becoming known as an expert. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Ma. So, I mean, I like that you clarified at the end that there is a distinction between a strategic communications practitioner and a strategic communications expert. So, just in case you feel like, oh, I'm already one, if you follow us through, you would know if you're just a strategic communications practitioner and you need some more efforts in your communications, in your strategic communications to become a strategic communications expert. So the response you just gave in defining what it means to become a strategic communications expert, you made mention of how these people. It's clear that strategic communications professionals, work in different organizations and sectors. So it would be nice if you can explain some more how being a strategic communications expert fits into the world of business, politics, and society. We can
Sorry, I was
we
on
cannot
mute.
hear you.
I was on,
Oh
I
yeah.
was on mute. So, first of all, I mean, I want to expand a bit about. So, the thing about communications, like I had said earlier, it's everywhere. It has to do with everything that you're doing. So, how it fits in, for instance,
Okay.
is this. We had talked about being an expert. So, there's difference between being an expert and being just a specialist
And
or a
being a
practitioner.
practitioner.
And at the business level, you are You are somebody that is able to help resolve problems in business. In other words, whether it has to do with sorting out agendas with regulators, whether it's about internal communications, employee issues, business problems, becoming more productive, building a shared vision, you're able to help with that. If it's in the political space, it's about helping. Like, for instance, you want to have a new policy, like the whole electricity
Okay.
policy in Nigeria. We saw how that that whole communication went. So
Yeah.
people should have been an approach where somebody is saying, we're going to make a big change about electricity tariffs. There are different types of people, different populations. This is the perception people have. This is where they are coming from. How do we slice and dice this messaging and ensure that people can embrace it? What are the risks associated with this messaging? So public policy, there's a big strategic communications expertise area in that. Very, very big. And the point I would like to make is
Okay.
that all of these areas, strategic communications has a foundation that you apply in different settings, but each setting has its own specialism. So strategic communications
Okay.
is the generalist foundation. So strategic communications in business is very commercial driven, business driven, return on investment driven, that kind of thing. Strategic communications in NGO and development setting is very
Okay.
impact driven. It's about making sure that the
Okay.
money, that you spend, you actually it's not so much return on investment, is now impact and that and contribution, social impact, humanitarian, that kind of thing. But at the same way, it's really about how you are able to build alliances and get in and do what you need to do using communication to get the support of the community. Now, one common thing that all the sectors applies to strategic communications across bodies, an expert must be able to help the business set the agenda for the
Okay.
business. You must also be able to advise senior leaders. You're advising the MD and the C-suite, the chairman, the board. Do you understand? That's what an expert does. Expert is not advising the comms officer or the operations somebody. You understand what I'm saying? You're
Yeah.
advising. If you are in politics, you're advising the permanent secretaries, the honorable ministers, the presidents, the executive governors. Those are the people you're advising. The heads of the parastatals, those are the people that you are advising. And then you are helping to resolve conflict. So big issues that are coming up, either in business or in politics, you are helping them to resolve it. Sorry, it seems there's a little bit of okay. Yeah, okay. So yeah, you are helping them to resolve it. And then you're also helping them to enhance their delivery. So that's in the political setting. In the societal setting, which can really be anything, it can be professional associations, it can be community groups. Again, you are the kind of person that is able to elevate. Let's assume a professional association now that started off like a community, a small association. Thanks, Michael, for that feedback. Awesome. Thank you. You are able to help them, set the communications agenda or use communications to drive, the delivery of that association, that from just being a community-based association eventually grows to become a national association to, and that kind of thing. So it's still
Okay.
strategic communications that is the foundation. But then in business is different. In politics is also different. Like, for instance, in politics, it should be about being citizen-centric. It should also be
Okay.
about being stakeholder-centric, although we do find out that in areas, in countries like ours, I think there's too much of a focus on being stakeholder-centric and not citizen-centric.
Centric
I think
and citizen.
that's a transition we need to make. We're not quite there yet. Some political players are beginning to move in that direction. I can think of about two people, but most people are still only focused on like other politicians like themselves,
Stakeholders.
and then power brokers, and that kind of thing, and then government personnel. But that should not be the way it is. But at the end of the day, the generalist skill that everybody has is that the strategic communications basis, and then you then have specialisms in different areas. So you can grow to become an expert in any of those areas. You could also grow to be an expert that can work across all the areas, so that's it.
This was going to lead me to the other question that says, is strategic communications expertise limited to, just private sector alone? However, you touched, very well in such a short time when it's from your last response, it's clear that we do not need expertise in strategic communications only in the private sector. You've mentioned the non-profit. You've mentioned how that has to be social impact driven. The political sphere, how that has to be, stakeholder and citizen centric. So
Mm.
I might just proceed to asking the next question. That is, so what's the pathway to becoming an expert in this field? Is there one pathway, or are we discussing many pathways to becoming, a strategic communications expert?
I would say, hmm, hmm, hmm. there are so there are several pathways, I would say, to becoming a strategic communications expert. There is more than one pathway to becoming a strategic communications expert. But what I've seen is that the pathways have commonalities, if you know what I mean. So
Okay.
there's a group of skills that I think apply across board, but then with a bit more deepening here and there. And I want to keep mentioning that we're really talking about expertise here, being called an expert, and not necessarily just being a practitioner. Because before you can call yourself an expert in anything, it means that you have developed general. I mean, let's use the example of a medical doctor. Medical doctor goes to spend 7 years in school learning the general basis of the practice. Then after you come out from med school, you then specialize, whether you are a gynecologist. I'm not even particularly sure where the specialization happens, whether it's, at what stage, but at some point there is a breaking away when the gynae person becomes gynae entomologist, gastroenterologist. Everybody, they go their separate ways, but they're still medical doctors. There are basic things that they all learned, on that journey, and then from that specialism they now grow in that. That's typically, I think, how our profession works as well, when it works really well. So that person then becomes an expert gynecologist, even though a medical doctor, but their specialism, the cardiologist is specialized the same way. That's how it is. You can then, at some point, you are still a strategic communications expert, but your specialism is in development communications, or your specialism is in corporate communications, or your specialism is in policy communications, or any other thing. For someone like me, my specialism, I would say I'm corporate communications, but I sort of segue around a bit, but I think I'm more of corporate and business communications, and then a little bit of political communications as well, and slowly being dragged into development communications. But in terms of expertise, my strongest expertise is in business and political communications, in that order. But I also slowly get into a little bit of development communication, but it's not a core strength for me as much as the others are. So there are many pathways, and just to take you through some, because I did a little bit of I tried to do a little bit of how would I say, research before we had this session, just trying to understand what are the pathways based on what my experience is, and then what I could also see from some other people's journey on LinkedIn as well. And this is what I found that generally, like I said, most people have that generalist expertise, and then you then have a bit of specialism when you go at some point. What I would say generally is that my observation is that you need to have media. I find I've not seen anybody that can use that term, call yourself a strategic communications expert, and you do not have media experience. And when I mean media, I'm not saying social media. I mean media, as in you know how to deal with the media, you know how the media works. It's all these days, though, I don't know. Let me put a caveat on that, because I see the younger generation coming up with digital and social media marketing, and people trying to forge a pathway that way. It's too early for me to be able to say whether that can actually grow into what I would call strategic communications expert, because most of those digital marketing roles and jobs just really started. I'm seeing some people making a segue. I'll talk a little bit about how I think you can make that move if you are coming to that way. But the pathways that I was able to see was, I saw that there was a media route. So I saw about 7 pathways. So 7 is media route. Some people started off in the media. That's a very common one. They started off in the media. They did a bit of print, TV, and radio, and then eventually they started doing whatever, maybe programming, content development, and then found their way, started gathering. At some point, came into actual communications, and then that evolved, and then things like that. Some people, NGO routes. it's a very, in fact, for me, I think that's the low-hanging fruit for route for anybody. So if you are somebody that you are involved in, you've been doing digital marketing and you want to grow into strategic communications, look for one job, one volunteer role somewhere, either church, faith-based organization, NGO, charity that is looking for somebody to manage their comms for them as comms officer. Just you will learn this job, because they will have events. You will have to write correspondence to people. You will have to invite the media at some point. You will have to build relationships. In the process of setting up all those things, you will get to know a little bit about the profession, particularly if you really have that responsibility and it's an NGO that is very active in doing things and you're going out of your way to learn. If you stay only doing one thing, like managing social media handles, like some people like to do, then you will not learn anything other than that. You cannot be a strategic communications expert by managing social media handles alone, because social media on its own does not teach you about strategic communications. I need to make that point. What social media teaches you is clickbait, clapbacks, witty comebacks.
Yeah.
It's not strategic communication, not necessarily. It teaches you how to engage fast. It does not necessarily mean you will be able to inspire the action of people that you need. You may, but it doesn't necessarily follow. For you to be able to use social media in a way that is purposeful beyond social media, you have to be able to understand some elements of what it means to be of strategic communications in itself, and then use social media as a tool. So social media is not an end. It is a means, one of several means. That's what strategic communications teaches you. So when I see people specializing in digital and social media marketing very early in their career, my question to you is this: is this what you want to do for the rest of your life?
Having a
It's too
poor
soon.
signal here.
Yes. Because ideally, you should build generalist skills. I will give you an assignment. If you want to be a strategic communications expert, please go to LinkedIn and Google in the in the search engine, where just type in strategic communications expert. Everybody that has that word in their profile, those 3 words, it will come up. That was what I did. And when you search and you just look through their profile, you'll be it's very interesting. I promise you. I did. In fact, it was so interesting at the stage I was like, oh, let me stop. But I discovered, and I saw that the trajectory was similar to what I myself have experienced. I wish I had had the time to really sit down and do a thorough research, for that long, but it wasn't so possible. So there's the media route, there's the NGO route, which is professional association, like I said, either charity, humanitarian, or church, or faith-based, that kind of thing. There's the brand and marketing pathway, where you either started up managing one brand or the other. Brand is a very good entry point into becoming a strategic communications expert, because for you to manage a brand, I am not telling you are managing the social media account of a brand. That's not managing a brand. Managing a brand means you are managing the communications around the brand. Because I see that these days,
I think that we need to make this louder for those behind. We need to
in
make
the
this
back,
louder for those behind. That
exactly.
management is
You are
not
managing a
brand
brand. No, you are
management.
managing the account of a brand. That's what you are doing. But the person who is managing the brand is managing how the brand expresses itself across platforms, of which social media is one, numero uno, one of several. A brand expresses itself in many ways. It expresses itself, for instance, LinkedIn is an app. It expresses itself in terms of how people view it, in terms of its service, in terms of its communications with its customers, in terms of how its services are received, the market's positioning, so many things. So a strategic communications expert should even be thinking about, what is this brand saying across platforms? What message are we sending out? How are people receiving it? How is it affecting our marketing and market positioning? So it's not just about Twitter, because that's what all. It's not only all your audience or your market is bigger than the people that are there on Twitter. So that's that. So there is that brand. So brand is a very good entry point. And like I said, not brand of a handle. So if you are managing the brand of social media of an account, you can use that as an entry to get more interested in what the brand is doing as a whole. But then that would also take some, you also have, you need some learning that you'd have to do to understand how to do that, So you will have to you will need to go for some training and some courses. My own personal pathway was the public relations and PR and public relations routes. So I started off in public relations as a youth corper, ended up working that way for some other companies, and then I eventually I also moved on to, in my church I was in charge of publication, so I was doing a lot of writing. And like I'd said before, writing, when you're doing publications, when you're writing for a brand, as I was writing for the church in the
Faith-based.
newsletter, yes,
Yeah.
faith-based organization, you have to get into, first of all, you have to understand the tone of voice. So I started learning things about comms without realizing I was learning things about comms, because I had to understand the tone of voice of the organization. I had to be able to write in a way that it will sound like it was the pastor speaking, even though it wasn't them. This is all strategic communications. So if they are reading the church newsletter or whatever, they are getting the same kind of feeling they would get listening to a sermon on Sunday. That is strategic communications, consistency of messaging across board, which is why I say those kind of places, it's a very good place to learn if you have the opportunity. So I did that. Then eventually I went on into PR, government relations, then external relations planning, internal communications, business communications, before eventually I found my way back into communications. Because when I entered the practice, communications was not a thing, yes. So that was my own trajectory. There's also the academic pathway, which is when you actually go to school, you have a first degree or second degree to get that, to actually get that. I also recommend that as well. But as you get the academic training, you also have to apply. But it helps once people see that degree in your CV and they're like, oh, the person has this, even if what you've done before was different, they will consider that. Another thing is certification. I think that also helps. If you can't go back to school to get a full degree, but you can get a certification from a registered from a professional association that is credible, that also helps you. I know NIPR, for instance, has a lot of courses and programs. There's a whole journey that you can take. So I recommend that academic pathway. But then as you're doing the academic, please be practicing, because theory and practice has to go together. But one point I really want to make in all of this is that there is training that goes with each of these areas, because some of them are very technical and some are more technical than others. To get to the point of being an expert is not by winging it. It's not only just by learning or watching people. You will also have to get trained at some point. So the last pathway, the digital marketing pathway, is the one that I said I put a question mark around it, because only time will tell how that works, because digital marketing has just become a thing. But I've started seeing some people moving. I know somebody who has transitioned from digital marketing to a comms role, and I've also seen somebody transition from digital marketing to marketing comms, now getting more involved in brand. So I don't know if eventually they will end up in core strategic, but I can already see the pathway. So I hope some of this is making sense to Tibe. I don't know.
It's
Is it
making a
making
lot of sense. I mean, we're having so many feedback, and and I love that our participants are engaging in the conversation. We have this question from, even though some other participants have answered, I'm just going to say everything to you, right?
okay?
Michael says um, he likes to go straight to the point, to see that there's a clear understanding when he's communicating with his colleagues. But on the other
Mm,
hand, the colleagues just do not hit the point on time. Is this some
mm.
strategic communication style or just bad communication?
Well,
Going through
Michael
so
had said
many
that.
things before saying, making a
Yeah.
point.
Well, so again, Michael. So Michael had already asked that. Is this really? It's not particularly aligning with the topic of the question, because this is, I mean, the
Yeah,
of the for today. But
of the
I will take it in
conversation.
that, yes, of the conversation, in that I think, yeah. So yes, I think what you, okay, so it is relevant, because what you have pointed out in your question is exactly what happens. So what you pointed out is a micro example of what happens in a macro level when organizations do not take the time to build their expertise in strategic communications or make sure that they get people who have the skills. So they will communicate like your colleagues. Because a lot of people think that communication, anybody can communicate. I can tell you for free, no, not everybody can communicate. Yes. Because yes, Michael, like what you said, some people they go round and round. Some, after they finish talking, they are more confused. The audience, you are more confused. They're like, please, can you get to the point? Have we all attended those conferences when you give somebody the microphone and they're like, they're supposed to ask a question, and then they are perambulating. And then at the end of the people are like,
Yes.
what is the moderator is like, what is the question? Then the person will now start, yes, that is poor. Now imagine if a brand or a business communicates that way.
Well, that's poor
And that is what
communication
happens.
for a brand.
Yes. So those people that ask those long winding questions in conferences, or those your colleagues now, Michael, imagine if they now set up their own companies and they don't get experts to run their communications. Please, can you explain to me what is going to happen? Or what still,
So
they get,
this is very clear.
yes,
It
or
gives me
they
a
get a
very clear
political
situation of
position.
bad.
Sure, you understand? Yeah.
Yes.
Or you become a
Yeah.
political leader, there's a crisis. How do you galvanize you can't even express yourself, Seth. And by the way, Michael, to your point, that is why they always insist in developed countries that before politicians, before they do elections, you must do a debate. Because communications, because a leader is supposed to set the tone. A leader is supposed to be able to use communications to galvanize a population or a set of people, either you are business, in a particular direction. Communications is an
Direction.
key part of leadership effectiveness across board. So back to the question you had asked earlier, Mutubeno, in every society, that's the thread. Because even if you say strategic communications is not necessary at working level, at any other operational level, it's not at leadership level. No, sorry. Except you are leading yourself. If you are leading yourself, okay, fine. But then, as like me now, I'm running my own firm. I need to be able to, how do I project my brand in such a way that the type that we are able to attract the kind of business interest that we want to. It's not just by me just going out and saying the first thing that comes to my head. It's about me stepping back, thinking about what my brand is, what is the offering that we have, and then what is out there, and what do I need to say and do that enables people to me to attract the right kind of interest. Please keep that in mind, because there's some kind of interest I don't want. So go back, purposeful communication, strategic, and experts. So the expert is the one that is able to deliver that level of results in the same context consistently over time, or even in different contexts consistently over time. The same way cardiologist, if you bring into somebody who has a heart problem, he's able to tell you this is what is wrong with this patient. This is how serious or severe I think this symptom is. These are the tests we need to run. This is the kind of treatment I recommend that this patient will go through. If I'm going to handle it, this is where I see this going. And over time, people are able to see that competence. The diagnosis is correct, the treatment plan, everywhere else you go and check it, it is, do you understand? That is exactly how it is. So you
Thank
don't,
you
the word
so
that,
much.
yeah, back to you. Sorry.
Thank you so much, Ma. I mean, this has been, from pointing out that it's important on your pathway to becoming a strategic communications, expert. It's very important that you volunteer. You pointed that out early enough, and then you also said, I'm just reiterating some of the focus, things you have said. Apart from, volunteering for people on this, from people on this call, from people on this having this conversation with us, it's also very, very important that we don't just call ourselves, communications experts because you're a social media manager, because you're managing an account. It's important that you have that experience, have that training. And I like that there are a few responses that we're having and feedback from some of our participants. And thank you so much, Mike, again for your question. I hope that you got clear answers. I mean, we can't have a president who cannot communicate. So that means a what they call now a colleague like that, right, in your office if such a person is going to be having his own brand, that person cannot run away from having a strategic communications expert because it's going to be very poor communication in that instance. So this leads us to another question that says, what are the skills and competencies that you must have to become a strategic communications expert?
Thank you, Tibeno. And thanks to everybody. Just keep the questions coming. If you have any more, just we'll take them in well, anytime the comments, any question that you have, we'll take them as we go along. But we have to bring this to a stop by 3:30 at the most. So for me, I would say core communication skills. I mean, I alluded to this before that foundation is even understanding. There's something we call core communications competencies. And that core communications is understanding what the strategic communication framework is so that you can apply it. And I tell people, I say, if you don't know what the strategic communication framework is and you don't even know that it exists, then you need to go somewhere where you will be taught what it is because it applies across sectors. Now, for me, I spent a lot of my years as a communications professional, cutting my teeth, growing up, growing to the point where I can now call myself an expert in the energy sector. And when I worked in the energy sector, to be honest, after I left that part of my life and moved on to my consulting job, I wasn't really sure. I didn't know if what I could do. I didn't know whether I'll be able to work anywhere else or do anything else. But to my utmost surprise, I found out that because I understood the fundamentals of communications and the concepts and the principles, I was able to transfer that learning into different contexts. So I was able to work. So since then, when we set up SA&A in 2020, I've been able to work in education sector. I've been able to work with health. I've been able to work with IT solutions. I've been able to work with public sector. I've been able to work with the political sector using this same strategic communications framework. And even now, I'm beginning to also get some interest in the development sector area. So that's also an area that I'm going into. But the development communications, the difference with development communications is that there's a lot of behavioral change and regulatory. There's just some other things that play in that space that is different from business. So there's some things that one would have to learn about differently because it's very community grassroots based communication and it's a different model entirely. But the principles are more or less the same. So I would say that's on the deep understanding of that framework, ability to apply it to solve problems, and being able to create bespoke solutions and not take a cut and paste approach. I really want to emphasize on this cut and paste approach because I noticed that a lot of our people in PR and communications, we like that cut and paste. In other words, oh, I did this marketing plan for these people, or I did this for these people. They just want to take it out, dust it, change the names, and use it somewhere else again. It's a terrible way to practice. And when you do that, that tells me that you are not a strategic communications person. You are a tactical communications person. Because what you are doing, or if you are doing that, it is as bad as a doctor prescribing the same medicine to patients that show up with similar symptoms without going into their medical history, checking out what is wrong with them, running tests to find out what is going on, but saying, oh, you came with a fever. Anybody that comes into my office with a fever of 39 degrees centigrade, I will prescribe them so and so medication. Whereas, what is causing the fever? So I always start, because I understand strategic communications, I start off with a blank sheet of paper. What is the problem we are trying to solve? That's exactly what we start off with. And then I apply that framework. But if you don't know the framework, you cannot apply it. And that's why we're always looking for cut and paste approach. And to be honest, that's why many of us have a lot of dissatisfied managers, dissatisfied leads, because you can't think through the problem. But it's impossible if you don't have the framework. It's not, for me, there's one thing I will say here. If you are not applying frameworks to your practice of the profession, you're not even anything close to an expert. I don't want to use the word to describe what you are, but you are not an expert. And you're not even on the journey to expertise. Why do I say this? I have had times when I've visited medical doctors where when they want to make a decision about the medication, they bring out their pharmaceutical manual. Have you ever, Utibe, have you seen them do that? They
Yes.
actually bring out their manuals to check the class of drugs before they decide what they're going to prescribe. Why? Because there are frameworks. You do not use your gut instinct. Of course, there's a place for gut instinct, but there's also a place where you need to check what is in the manual.
Okay.
So,
This is quite an
yes,
interesting conversation.
it is. So that's why I said strategic communications expert, because we keep using that word. I want you to understand that it is not a buzzword. It's not a buzzword. We're not using it because it's a
Expertise.
pretty word. We want to sound funky and show that we are doing something important. No. There's a big difference between somebody who is practicing strategically based on a knowledge of communications concepts and principles that work across board than somebody who is winging it. The first thing is that you cannot work outside that environment that you are in. They carry you, whatever it is you are doing there, they take you to another country, another location, you cannot work there. Because you have been used to practicing based on what is culturally acceptable, not necessarily what is best practice. So for instance, you can see under the scrolling of my table, I talk about the strategic communications course. That's the reason we set up that course, was to introduce this framework to people, because I realized by the time I started my consulting firm and I started talking to a lot of my practitioners, I saw that a lot of people were struggling in that strategy space. Now, to make you understand this thing very well, SA&A, we don't do tactical communications. So we don't run
Strategic
campaigns. We
communications.
don't do events. I want you to understand. Why have we been able to create a niche for ourselves in strategic communications? Why? Because very few people are doing it. Everybody else is doing copy and paste. They are doing templates. So when somebody has a problem, a real problem that requires somebody to think through something that there is no precedent for, you don't have any templates to borrow from somewhere, you need to create afresh. Oh yeah, go ahead now. When you don't know the framework, you don't know the principles, how will you do it? You can't help them. You will continue to tell them this is how we did it, whereas it's not the same context. I consult for a lot of clients. I have never been able to repeat one solution for another, even for people in the same industry. I have never. Sometimes I have tried. It has never been possible. Because by the time I get into the details of it, I find out that it's completely different. So it will be unprofessional, incompetent, and completely lax of me to suggest. I can't even. So I always start from blank sheet of paper. And I'm saying this, I have a lot of clients
Identifying the
within one
problem
sector.
first.
I have never been able to do the same thing I did for one client for another. Because what this client has, the other one doesn't have it. A client, for instance, that has a well set up structure, communication structure, the way what we can do in that space is different. The starting point is different. The ground zero is different. The guy that doesn't have anything at all, the ground zero is completely different. The issues are different. The business agenda is different. The focus is different. And to many of us doing marketing, that's why you are struggling. That's why your leaders are upset with you, because you are doing tactical communications. So the one message I will leave for you is, if you do not understand, you don't even know what strategic communications is, please DM me after this or write it in the chat that you want to learn. That's if you want to be a strategic communication expert. And
And
so if
everybody
you,
should want to be a strategic
yes,
communications expert if
yes,
you're practicing communications.
yes. And to be honest, I mean, what I have seen is that it's really amazing to me, because I now realize that I think people did not emphasize the theoretical aspect of our practice as much as they should have. That's my honest reflection now, because I think in other professions, they emphasize that theoretical part. I mean, in the MBA, Nigerian Bar Association, they continue to teach you. In fact, they even have some trainings in MBA, communications for lawyers. Even lawyers are taking training for communications now. Then you are in the zone. You are not taking training. And I know,
So
because
please let's it up. Oh.
I was once on a distribution list that was, I was getting some of those emails. They have a training plan for the year, of which one of the courses is communications for lawyers. particularly the one for people managing cases that involves, like PR, media is getting involved. They have trainings for that. Why did they develop the training? Because they saw that they were beginning to face new challenges that was outside of their skill set and that they needed training to be able to deal with. So Motolani is asking for a question. So is that,
Okay, I mean, we
okay,
have so many questions. Let's
let's start
see.
taking the
She
questions so
say
that we can.
she
Uh-huh.
says, you're answering my question about. Okay, so let me just go to it. I really want to know how someone who has had experience in one industry can be an expert in strategic communications for other industries. The thing I find interesting about this essay is that they are just following, because this was going to be the exact question I was going to ask next, right? So is it possible to become a strategic communications expert and work across different sectors, or are the pathways restricted to that once you work in, I mean, the development sector, you cannot work in the political sector? Is it possible to diversify? What, and then, I mean, there's another question: what is best practice? What are the rules and frameworks that can position you as an expert? I mean, SA mentioned that she's having a course sometime, and she said for the frameworks come there. But we'll answer this question now. If it is possible um to diversify in strategic communications within different sectors.
So that's an excellent question. I think that's Motola. Yes, Motolani. It's an excellent question. So I would say yes and no. So the yes is, in principle, yes, you should be able to diversify if you have really, really learned like the basics, like we said. You have learned strategic communications as a framework, as a baseline. Therefore, you can apply it. Like in those days, it's just maths equation, maths formula. When you understand the formula, you are able, like board mass. If you didn't understand board mass, you can't apply board mass. Do you understand? You will never ever understand. You'll be wondering, which do I use? When they give you the brackets here, the plus, the times, you'll be wondering. But when you understand it, you can then tackle the equation. That's exactly how it is. So if you don't have knowledge of that framework, it's impossible for you to work across industries. Let me just tell you that for free. Impossible. You will fall flat. The people will be like, what? They said, also this person, they said, because the context is different. I know this for a fact because I'm telling you, I worked in the energy sector. I have studied how they do comms in banking. It's very different from how we operate in the energy sector. So I cannot, if I'm going to have a client in the banking and the financial sector, I would have to study them, the way they do things, before I can start supporting them. I have to use the framework because the context is different. The stakeholders are different. The regulatory drivers are different. So I cannot just jump and paste and now be talking energy industry things when I'm talking to them. I'm supposed to be do you understand? And the strategic framework starts from the business context, the organizational context. The same way, if you are doing strategic communications for like all you Canada people, you are doing it in Canada for the whatever federal authority for Canada. You want to go and be bringing Nigerian? No, you have problem. Oh. So, but you have to understand the context. Sometimes it may be cultural context. That's the starting point. Again, that's what strategic communications teaches you.
Communication.
So yes, if you have the principles, you can. Now, why I say no is that there's some sectors that it is difficult to transfer to because it requires certain level of expertise. Now, strategic communications, those of you that I wish I had brought that chart. There was one infographic I created earlier in the week where I shared how different practices of communications, and then strategic communications is at the base of it. I will attach it to this comment list after the session. And when I did that chart, what I was trying to show there was that strategic communications finds expression in different areas: change communications, political communications, development communications, and all of that. But there's a point at which you specialize. Now, in some fields like STEM communications, for instance, which is science, technology, engineering, and maths, not everybody can be a STEM communicator because depending on the level of expertise or business knowledge that is required, assuming, let's say, NASA, the National Aeronautics Association in America, wants to run a STEM program for kids in the US, for instance, they may require somebody who has expert knowledge on STEM, but is also a communicator to run it. So for that, you may not be able to, because again, another thing about strategic communications, you have to be able to enter, you must be able to enter the business mind. Whoever it is you are supporting, you must be able to understand the issues there. So if you are somebody that, like now, you cannot be a political communicator if you don't understand politics or you have no interest in politics. Please stay away from political communications.
Don't understand politics.
And you have no interest in it, please don't get involved in anything politics strategy comes. Because expertise means that when you are talking with the business and the organizational leaders, as they are talking, you are matching them precept for precept, knowledge for knowledge, understanding for understanding. If they are talking too high, your brain cannot comprehend what they are saying. Well, what is the communications advice? How are you helping them resolve anything? Remember, I said strategic communications expert engages with the leaders. So you have to understand the language of the leaders. You have to understand the context of the leaders. So that is it. So
Thank you
yes,
so much.
in principle, you can work across a number of sectors,
Sectors.
but there are some places you may not be able to work in, and you should know what those are. So for me, I found out that because of the sector I was working in, which somehow straddles the political sector, policy sector, as well as development, I have been able, and business, I have been able to move across those sectors. For now, I can't talk anything else that is outside of there. But but that's it. But scientific, technical sectors, I've not ventured into those spaces. Now, for me to be, I consider myself an energy communicator as well as other things because I spent 22 years in the energy industry communicating technical about energy, try helping to simplify energy stories into relatable language.
Policies.
Yes.
I said, let me just mention that 22 years is not the same thing as being a social media manager. I don't know why I keep going back here because, like we said in the LinkedIn search, a lot of people just call themselves strategic communications experts. The expertise is in the work, is in
Yeah.
the training, is in the resources that you've put into your, personal and career development. So it's not just a word, it's not just tactics, it's actually structure, it's actually, learning and of course, like you said, it's not copy and paste. It's knowing the problem and preparing solutions to individual problems of different sectors and different organizations. So, we are still having comments, and this is you're not. I mean, while we have just a few minutes to wrap up this session, it's still not late for you to share this link. I like that you're giving us very positive feedback. So you can share this with someone who needs to see this. I know you've already mentioned something about skills and competencies for strategic communications, but then it's also important that you just highlight the most important competence or skill that you can have as a strategic communications expert. And I'd also like to just add this other question, the follow-up question that so how did you become a strategic communications expert? And have you ever experienced regrets, or have you regretted the pathway or career choice you made 22 years ago? That's a lot of time, actually.
It's even more than 22, but I like to say the 22 so that I don't scare people, So I like to say, even though it's actually more than that, I will not tell you how long. But yes, so it's actually longer than that. So because before the 22, I had left school for 7 years before the 22, and since the 22, there have been 4 years. So just add that up. Anyway, nothing, no problem. So I think the most important thing about being a strategic communications expert is that you just have to be somebody that likes to be strategic. And I need to make this point because so long as you are someone who you don't like to think your way through problems and create things, because the core skill you need is actually critical thinking and problem solving. That's what it is. When you check out strategy, what is strategy? Strategy is people that think before they act. That's all it is. Oh, that's all it is. So when we say
Yeah.
strategic communications experts, we have joined three words that are complete words in their own, that can stand on their own. Strategic means this is not somebody that acts just anyhow. There is a whole thought process. There is a plan, outcome driven approach to how they do things. There's an intent, there's a purpose, there's a premeditation, there's an order, there are milestones, there's a thinking about how do I know where I'm getting to, what am I coming to, where am I going? And then communications is about passing a message and communicating it back. And then the expertise, an expert is somebody who is best in class in what they do. So those three words, we put them together to say strategic communications experts. And that is exactly what we have. So so for me, I don't have any regrets. To your question about whether I have any regrets about whatever, I honestly do not have any regrets, and I don't even think there's any way. It has been a journey, and I didn't end up in communications. This was all by chance, because I first started off being in public relations and then found my way into communications. And the choice of PR was just happened to me. I didn't plan it. It was National Youth Service that brought me into PR. So I was posted into a firm, and then they looked at my degree and they said, "Oh, international relations," and then they put me in PR. And then I had this wonderful boss then. It was actually NMPC at the time, and she was the editor of NMPC News. And then she told me to start writing for her, and that was it. And I enjoyed it, and I was going to events, and I'll come back and write stories, and all of that. And so that was how my journey into PR has gotten. And for me, when I went to school, I studied international relations. Then it was not common to study that kind of thing, and some of my relatives felt, "Oh, she has such good school certificate. Why would she go and study such a course?" But you see, they no regrets, because all the places they thought I couldn't work, I ended up working there. Because by the time I got into the job market after several years, PR became a thing. Companies began to find out that they needed to manage their reputation. And then, when that happened in the energy industry, God opened the door, I got in there. So somehow, it hasn't been all rosy and all that, but there has never been an time I've regretted it. And now that the world has gotten into the communication and information age, oh, here I am. I'm so everything, all the lights are falling together in a beautiful place. So yes,
You're
absolutely.
diversifying.
Yes, absolutely none. And for me, the future of the profession is bright. In fact, what I even see happening is that it will get to a point whereby anybody that doesn't have a communications professional on roll, you will be the same way you will not set up your business without hiring a lawyer or a tax person or a procurement person. That is how it will be at a stage. You will have to have either a comms person in role with you, or somebody outsourced outside. That's where the future is going, because the whole space has gotten to that point whereby you have to be able to communicate. Everything can, because people can quickly misunderstand you. You can say anything anywhere. Somebody records you, goes out, posts it, and this whole narrative.
Yes. So
So
you have to be
you see
clear.
today, people, yeah, you see people today having to do comms for themselves. When one story has gone out, they have to shoot a video and come and clarify. That's the world we're living in now. There are so many family matters that is being thrown out into the public space now. Do you understand? So that's the world we're
Yeah.
living in. So for me, like, even the Chinese walls that existed with family secrets are no longer there. So when I see businesses who are being, like, "Oh, I can't afford this, I'm not," I'm like, you are really playing, you are playing, because let's hope you can get the help when you need it. But wait until when you need it before being able to get that help is really not the way to go. So yeah, that's my last top ends.
Oh
So back
yes.
to you,
Thank you
Tibe.
so Okay. Thank you so much, Ma. I mean, from the feedback, we're seeing that participants are, having such a time. And if there's a business leader who is listening to this conversation, or a C-suite leader, or, I mean, those of us who are still in the practice and growing in the practice, once you become a business leader, executive in your organization, know that do not make the mistake of thinking that you can do communications yourself and not having somebody in that role. Like SA said, right, there are instances where, in fact, there's almost no organization or brand that started out without having a legal practitioner, without having someone who they talk to. So, I mean, why won't you have a strategic communications expert? And if you're already in the practice, why won't you aim to become a strategic communications expert? So we understand from what you've said, you mentioned some frameworks that that are very important in the practice, and even from the drop down, we see that there is a strategic communications course coming up by Sola Abulu and Associates. And how this course help the learners to become experts in this field. I know you've already said that some of these frameworks will be, exemplified in the course. So, but how will this course help learners to become experts in the field? And then is the course for early stage or intermediate, or I mean, who is this for?
Good question. I would say the course is actually, it's funny that you asked this question, because when I actually set up the course module, that was part of my thinking. Do I say it's early stage? Do I say it's intermediate? Do I say it's mastery? So I would say early stage, intermediate. But that early stage person has to be somebody who is, you really have the passion for strategic comms, and you are already doing things in that space. If you are fresh from school, I would not recommend it, because it is very much a practitioner's, it is very much a practitioner's practitioner. It's very much, I'm going to address it now. Thanks so much for that feedback. It's very much a practitioner's course, so it's not something that you just do. It's so practical. To give you an example, there was somebody who worked with us on, I did, sorry, I'm getting distracted. Oh, it still did not highlight. Okay, I hope this one is better. It's still not highlighting. I'll solve it later. It seems to be giving me a problem. Okay, but there was somebody who, for instance, she joined the last cohort, and she had a challenge. She was told by her boss to set up a to draw up a communications strategy and plan, and she had never done it before. And she registered for the course, because I told her, I said, look, this is not something that I can just have a 1 hour session with you and teach you. There's no quick and dirty, but we can start the conversation. So she enrolled for the course, and then we started having a conversation. And then, so she told me what it was. I sent her, because there's a step, it's like 7 steps. So I told her the first step, starts with this, starts with that. And I had a bit of context, because she and her, we've had some interactions before. So she, just by VN and all that, we were doing all of that. Then she came for the course. A few weeks after the course, she sent to me, so she sent me a couple of things that she had done. We went back and forth. By the time I saw the strategy and plan that this lady had drawn for this state government, I was blown away. I had to ask her again. I said, have you done this before? I thought you said you have not done this before. She said, I've never done it before. So 6 weeks of back and forth between me and her. So she said to me that, you had given me all the directions before, but that when I got to the course, so she had started some work. By the time she then got to the course and was now going through the whole, listening to people, going through the concepts and the principles, the syndicate sessions, she knew what to do. If you see the PowerPoints she sent back to me, in fact, I wish I could post it and show everybody and be like, see what a world-class communication
This is evidence that, this is evidence that you cannot miss this course.
No. So for me, that was a great joy, because I realized that, okay, this is teachable. This is teachable. She handed it over to the her employers, and I have already started seeing some evidence that implementation has started. Yes. And these are people who had been struggling with. So what people don't know is just, hey God, there are a lot of, I see there are a lot of business organizations, even political players, that I see struggling. Me, I know why they are struggling, because the kind of challenge they have is not something that you can do based on intuition, that intuition-based practice that many of us do. I think we should do. I think, no, you need a framework where you will know the questions to ask and how to slot it in. Then the picture that emerges from the answers to those questions will then determine what you're going to do. That's how we practice. That's how one day I can be talking to humanitarian this, tomorrow I'm talking to national politics, tomorrow I'm doing energy. That's it. I literally move from one conversation to the other. And with everybody, when I'm talking to energy people, they don't even believe that I have any clients outside of the energy industry, because I will be talking like an energy person. When I'm in the political space too, they believe that that's all I do. Why? Because I apply the framework. So And the context, so I will not be having, I'm talking to policy people or humanitarian people, I will not be bringing examples from the energy sector. I am firmly in their space. So if you want to be a strategic communications expert, you need to get training at some point. Me, as you are looking at me, I am highly trained. I sometimes need to make that point, because I think people think that's practice alone. I am extremely trained. I work for an organization where they trained me, as in I was, oh Lord, I was trained. I
Trained.
went for writing workshops. I had strategic communications training, crisis communications training, media relations training. We had a book that was this thick that we used to have to read. It was called the Blue Book. I was trained. I also did a lot of
Emphasis.
practice. Yes, I was trained. And all the other people that I see, which is why I didn't go and do a master's. My master's was MBA, because I didn't need a master's
Okay.
in communications, because I was working somewhere where we were trained. So if you are working somewhere, they are not bringing you into a classroom to train you, because certain things you would only learn in the classroom. Like my mentee mentioned, she said it was when she came to class that everything came together for her. So, and for me, that was a practical example, because I had been talking to her. So yes, there was a level that the coaching could do, which is what I was telling her. When in the classroom, you will get it. And that was exactly what happened.
And I
Meanwhile,
mean,
for
I should
years,
even add that. Okay.
yeah, go ahead, go ahead, go
I
ahead.
was just going to say that I mean, if this training is very important, you need to be trained, and if your organization cannot afford to train you, or they're not placing priority on training, ensure that you train yourself, stay relevant, and to be prepared for the prepare for your career development and growth in general. So
To
Esther, just to wrap this up, okay.
Yes. No, go ahead. No, so I was going to say that, to be honest, I think that's a message that is important to pass up to people, because
Across.
even me, across, why did I decide to go for a master's at some point? It was because I realized that there was a gap in terms of my knowledge and understanding. And I felt, look, if I leave this job now, what will I, am I sure that, or if this job, they say they're tired of me, what would I be able to, am I sure I'll be marketable? There was a lot going on in the
Offer,
industry at that
yeah.
time. And at that time, communications was not so much a thing. So I actually went out, funded with my own money, which wasn't easy. Thank God they allowed us to pay, in installments. And I was able to go and do the master's, MBA at the Lagos Business School, which really helped me. Now, see what happened. By the time I now developed the management and the leadership mindset, which has really helped me in terms of how I even operate as a consultant now. When I got to my office, they noticed, and then they started putting me in leadership positions in comms. So I was now able to add my business mindset with the comms mindset, and man, that was it.
Interesting. I mean, I feel like one thing that we must take out of this is that don't wait on any organization.
No,
As
don't
much
wait.
as it's
Don't wait.
important, and we hope that human resource managers, officers, they're all here listening, and you prioritize training of your communications practitioners. But as much as you expect that from them, put put in the work on your own self. So, to wrap this up, SA, what advice do you have for anyone seeking to follow in this career pathway? What should they start? What should they stop? What should they continue doing? What should we, who are approaching,
What did they do?
who are looking at 25 years plus,
I think
what should we be doing? What should we not do? What should we stop? What should we stop doing? What should we continue doing? What should we start doing? To follow this career pathway.
so. I think first of all, it's really about the one thing I would say you should stop doing is stop winging. So that whole if I the more I let me just be trying, now we get it. You will look, I can't tell you how many times when I was working in client side, which is what I call client side, when I was working in my former organization, we stopped calling agencies in, because more than half the time when they come in, they're talking rubbish. As in, what they're talking is not making sense. Why? Because most of them are not trained. And it's happening till
Actually,
today. I still have I'm telling you. They will not tell you to your face. So stop winging it. That one is a big stop. Stop winging it. If you know that you have a gap, go and close the gap. If you cannot afford, go on the internet and go and read. Look for webinars, attend, but go and learn. I mean, there is no craft. So communications has a science and it's an art. There is a craft to it and there is a learning to it. So please take that time to do that. So
Someone asked the
oh, thank you
question.
to
Okay.
yes for us answering that question. To be
But I
to
mean,
be
this question was already answered earlier.
yeah.
I see you. The question was, what are the skills needed to consider ourselves as, strategic communications, as a strategic communicator? This question was answered earlier. Well, I mean,
Yes, we had,
if
yeah, we
you would
had
want
answered it. So
to.
yeah. So well, since Tokubo has answered, I think so. I would say media relations is very key. Core communication skills, that's quite important as well. Stakeholder management skills is also important, as well as stakeholder communications. Social media knowledge is also important, I mean, to a very large extent. But I would say what is called core communications. In core communications is the ability to convey the ideas, know what it means to pass on a message and how you can do it in an editorial or a visual form, the ability to develop a strategy. Before you can call yourself a strategic communications expert, that core communication skill, you must have it. It starts from business objective, organizational objectives, to audience, to stakeholder, to messaging, to mapping, to profiling. And then two things that come together: strategic communications framework, stakeholder management framework. Those two things come together in for to have what you call the core communication skills. My observation is that it's mostly the international organizations that teach this to their employees. So if you're not working in an international organization, you probably have to get this elsewhere. Although I mean, if you have someone that can coach or mentoring you, otherwise sign up for our course as well. This is the third course that we're doing for this year, and
On strategic
yeah,
communications.
yeah, for strategic communications. So it's the foundational course. So yeah, I think maybe I would also well, anyways, yeah. So that's it. I'll put some links into the comments at the end of the day, just so that you can do your own assessment of yourself. There are many times I shared core competencies for some of these things in earlier posts. I don't know if I can still find them, but when you see that, when you go through that list, if you run through, you can then see for yourself where you are at and what you need to have it there. But media, knowledge of the media is extremely key. How the media works, and then how to create a communication strategy, how to create content and to communicate it to people, and then you get the feedback that you need. That's important. So I think we're out of time, Utibe. Let's just so that people don't, yeah, we spent more time than we had wanted to. Utibe, are you still there? I think you are frozen. So I would just say thanks to everybody for joining, and we're going to bring this to a close. In situ, thank you for answering the questions. Or rather, Tokumo, thank you for asking in situ's questions, and thanks to everybody. I'll be posting the registration link in the chat after this when I've ended my stream. So, and thanks to Utibe for moderating this session. I think she had a little bit of a power out, so, or network issue. Thanks, and bye everybody. Thank you. You'll see a copy of the video of this live stream, so you can always watch and catch up afterwards. Take care. Bye-bye.